Okay, thank you for staying. I have on my right Nancy Buirski, the filmmaker, and to her right, Barbara Horgan, Mr. Balanchine's former assistant. I just have a couple of quick things to say, and then I want to get right over to you guys. Just brilliant in every way there is to be brilliant. And at the risk of being cheesy, it just beautifully choreographed. No, but I'm serious. I'm serious. Just the arrangement of the images, the arc of the story, the narrative arc, and the way that it's supported by the images. Just really brilliant. A couple of things really stood out, but I had to actually write these down. When she has the pink clouds, and that dissolves into the pink on the dance floor, while she's talking about something that she wanted to say to Jerry, but she didn't know what it was. That whole everything mixing together, just it's a sort of a chilling moment in the making of the film and impression on me, certainly. Noticed this is a documentary audience, and noticed a few names at the end that might be recognizable to a few people, with Susan Lacey, Martin Scorsese, D.A. Pennebaker, Rick Burns. I mean, so a lot of support for this
had
project.
Great support.
Yeah,
great
support. Okay, so getting over to you guys. Well, the first question is to do with, you had to arrange an awful lot of footage not taken by you.
That's right.
So, and that's to your credit in the way that you not only found it, but put it together in the way that you did. That's what I mean by the choreography of it. In a lot of ways, a lot of documentary makers get to direct a lot of the stuff. In a lot of ways, they have to pull together other things to support that. The balance here is clearly archival. But then there was some of the stuff that was shot, like at the bar, feet at the bar,
oh, yes, yes.
And hands on the bar. Mm-hmm. Was that your shooting?
Yes, that was our shooting. We shot that at the School of American Ballet. And we had a great 2 days shooting there. It was wonderful. They let us shoot a number of different classes. And they're very, very particular about the way their dancers do their steps. And they said to us, you can use anything you want, but we need to see it first because we want to make sure that the dancing is correct, that it's the right Balanchine method. And we were happy to have them look at it, and they were happy with everything they saw.
And when you filmed that, I mean, it was very telling because it was the feet and the hands, and it's in support of this story about when her feet aren't working anymore, but her hands are working. And so, again, supporting it beautifully. Did you know that going in when you went to shoot it, or did you just shoot it and then you said, I'll fill this in where I need to?
I think we were looking to shoot in a kind of impressionistic feel and an abstract feel, because we knew we were hoping to use it in a kind of poetic way. We weren't going to be literal. We didn't think that it was going to illustrate any particular kind of dance. It was just going to illustrate feeling. So the fact that we chose feet and arms and all of that, that was one of many things we chose. There were other things too. But that's what we used.
That was brilliant. And just to kind of go outside of this particular documentary, but a lot of what we've been seeing here, it's almost thematic. And this is true, I know, for a lot of documentaries in general, but the way they've been going at this festival, the triumph of the human spirit, certainly love and support of the triumph of the human spirit, and the way that limitations provide opportunities, and that people get, you get what you get, and how people deal with that is what makes them exceptional.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that makes exceptional storytelling and filmmaking. So that we have wonderful love stories here between the triangle of Jerry and George Balanchine and Tanny, and also the love of dance from all the people involved.
That's beautifully said.
And to that end, there is a huge figure in this film, which is Jerry Robbins. He's on screen once. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I thought you'd never ask. I think for me, I found the relationship between Jerry and Tanny the most moving part of the film. Knowing Jerry as I knew him, it made him really human. It made him loving and kind, and he was that. People unfortunately remember the bad side of Jerry, which was his irritability and his crossness. But for me, when I first saw the film, Balanchine was almost an afterthought. that the film was about Jerry and Tanny.
Yeah, well, the access to, I saw in the credits that the Jerome Robbins wing at the library and so forth, and is that where all the letters came from?
Yes, that was a treasure trove, letters and photographs, you know. Jerry Robbins took those photographs of Tanny in the wheelchair, which happened when she came back from Denmark and before she went to Warm Springs. And I wish I could have used every single one of those images. They were beautiful. He's a very talented photographer. He kept journals. He also wrote letters to Tanny. Tanny wrote to him, and he kept all her letters. She wasn't aware of that until they were reproduced in a book by Amanda Vale about Jerry Robbins. And I think she said something which is not what one could not say well, at least in a newspaper. She couldn't believe he had kept everything, but you know, there was nothing she could do, and I had access to them. And the Jerome Robbins Foundation was incredibly helpful, providing access, as was the New York City Ballet. They have a huge archive, and Barbara helped us you know, facilitate that and get us down there and looking at everything. And, you know, you'd think that everything would be very, very well organized and easy to access. And unfortunately, companies whose business, it's not their business to be focused on their archive. Their business is to create dance. And so very often an archive can be sitting in a basement for many years, and you may be the first people to go there and try to excavate the material. And so that's a challenge, but it's a very exciting one. I mean, there's nothing like being in Warm Springs and having your researcher call you while you're busy you're shooting an iron lung, and she calls and she says, "I've just found a picture of Tanny." And it wasn't even identified as Tanny, she just recognized her. And that's one of those chilling moments in making a movie that's unforgettable.
Well, and an awful lot of mining to get that.
That's right.
The gems out of that. So more power to you for doing it and pulling it together. You say your relationship, the way that you knew Jerry. Now, you worked with Mr. Balanchine, which, as legend has it, everybody called him Mr. Balanchine, and you only slipped a couple of times. I think you called him Balanchine once or twice, but mostly Mr. Balanchine.
No, you can't call him George.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
that. I mean, and Barbara warned me when we were doing our interview. I slipped once, and she said, "It's Mr. Balanchine or Balanchine, but never George." I never slipped again, right?
Well,
I don't think.
Very, very impressive. But so, what was your relationship with Jerome, with Jerry? Because
well, when Jerry came back to the company, you know, he decided to give up Broadway. And he came back to the company in 1969 and created a work called Dances at a Gathering. And we had always known each other, but we had a very small staff at City Ballet. So I was kind of loaned out occasionally. When Jerry had a project, I would work with him on it. He did a program for NBC, a live sort of excerpts of his ballets. I did that for him. I toured with a small group for him. So, you know, it was a very small group of people who worked very well together.
Really, such an incredible resource to have you on this film, and because of everything on the inside, and one of the dots that gets connected is when you say, well, should we talk about the wives? I mean, because this is really, I mean, you can't talk about him without talking about the wives. But what's exceptional is that, again, because of the limitations, because of her sickness, he may have been ready to move on. If she had continued to dance, he might have moved on a lot sooner, because the next dancer, as she's diminishing, as she acknowledged that you diminish after a certain amount of time.
Yes, and I think that Tanny always said that to me. Look, you know, it wouldn't have gone on anyway. And but she didn't dwell on that. No,
but the fact is that when he came back, as you pointed out, it revivified his commitment to her.
Yes.
Because she was dependent on him,
yes.
And he was determined to make her move and to get her moving and so forth. And probably after he had already determined that she wasn't going to dance again, he still kept at it, kept her trying to move.
But they did have a life together.
Exactly.
They really did. Between 1956 and 1968, 69, they had a life together. They had their home in Weston. Tanny was doing more things socially. She was leaving the house more often, traveling, as you saw. So the relationship moved along.
In a beautiful way, and so many of the letters they're so intimate, but they're also so revelatory. That one that ends with "I wish that Tanny," and just just sends us out there into all the realms of possibility of what that could be.
If I tried to write a screenplay, I couldn't have written it better than
exactly
that.
Right.
You know.
But you did put together just an incredible record, and it's obvious that you had all this support. Talk a little bit about setting up the project. When you decided to do this, when you decided to go about it, what was the beginning?
I discovered Tanny looking at a documentary, coincidentally, on Jerome Robbins. And there was about a 2-minute section in the documentary, and I just fell in love with her. I was mesmerized by her, and she immediately became my muse. And I live in North Carolina and New York, and I knew Ricky Weiss, who runs the North Carolina Ballet, and used to dance with Mr. Balanchine at the New York City Ballet. And so I contacted him, and I said, what should I do? And he said, you have to talk to Barbara Horgan, and you have to talk to Jacques d'Amboise. And he made those introductions to me immediately, and I think I spoke with Barbara first. Yeah. And well, why don't you tell the story?
Of course, I didn't know what Nancy looked like, and she set up a luncheon on an East Side Italian restaurant, which was already a schlep for me because I live on the West Side.
So sorry.
So I walked up. It was in the summer, so she was sitting outside. And we, hello, and she said, "You want to sit here?" I said, "I hate sitting outside in New York City. This is not Rome." So we went inside. And after the usual and so on, very, very short conversation, I said, why do you want to do this film? And she said, Tanica Leclerc was an inspiration to 2 of America's greatest choreographers. And I thought, my God, I never thought of it that way. I was, sometimes you get too close. And so I knew instantly that's what it had to be. She had to do it.
And you signed on to help out.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of the schlep.
We had many wonderful lunches.
She did come to the West Side.
Yes, we had a good time. I have to say I could not have done this film without Barbara. I've told her this a million times, and she doesn't believe it, but it's true. There was a kind of underlying constant support that was there. I could turn to her anytime I had a question. As the film developed, I realized how complicated these characters were, that these were not simple people. And they had their good sides and they had their bad sides. And I remember saying to her, I have to try to do all of that if I can. And she fully supported it. She knew I was going to, it wasn't an expose or anything, but it was just a complex story and a love story, as you said.
Well, and to both of your credit, Barbara is the pivot point.
That's right.
Is the pivot point about which all these were in orbit at all times, but she's at the center, that sort of center of gravity there, and with different perspectives on all of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can only imagine the everything that goes behind the thoughts about Suzanne Farrell, but anyway, we're not going to.
But the one advice I gave Nancy was, be careful. Do not fall in love with Tanny, because you can get mesmerized by this charismatic woman. You fall in love with her.
You do, but Barbara wisely reminded me that she was tough, and she was very witty, but it sometimes could be a barbed wit, and to survive, she didn't suffer fools, and I know that I think I would have been intimidated by her if I'd met her. So yeah, so I heard that loud and clear.
Well, the different aspects of her personality captured in beautiful ways by different things. One, the reminiscences of the childhood friendship. I can't remember or pronounce
Patricia McBride Lusada,
yes,
Lady Lusada.
Exactly, and telling about how she'd had this charmed life and she liked the normal life. But then in her own words, it's like, well, but when you think about
to
a
certain extent, she liked the normal life, right?
But then the way that it went otherwise, but the seductive aspect of her, like don't fall in love with her, you could see just in her movements that there is a quality of there's the balletic quality and the discipline, but there's also just this incredible sort of sensual physicality that is sort of uncommon. I mean, even to people that are not as knowledgeable about dance as I'm not at all, but you could just see in her movement that there is a lot of her personality that goes into that, and that's what makes the distinctions, even for a layperson like myself. So a lot of dancers, a lot of people around, and you would agree clearly that Tanny was in a different realm.
Absolutely, yes. But also she was from an era of 40s, 50s, that with regard to dance, where dance was still something of a maverick trade. I mean, the dancers today are so different, so sophisticated, so smart, so savvy, and so talented. They're light years ahead of what Tanny and Pat Lusada were. And it was very, I would say both Pat Lusada and Tanny were quite conscious of not being normal.
Right. And in a beautiful way, I think, very much. And we do have to move on because we have to clear this out so they can set up. But I hope everybody will talk with the filmmaker and with Barbara out in the lobby and to continue the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you very much.
I feel like a rock star. I feel like a rock star.